One. Okay, now we get the recording going. Everyone has, a sense of what the final product is. Also, I think everyone did get a copy of the overview of all 5 projects, including what the prototype looked like and some of the feedback. Hopefully, those who are on the online or not on the online were able to interact with your colleagues about the feedback that they received related to their projects. So let me just start out and just ask, are there any general questions you need to ask me at this point before I just go through the parts of that final project again? Anything right now? Oh, okay, good. Now I can move on. That was my 3-second wait time. For those who remember that person by Madeline Hunter. Yes, someone wants to speak.
Well, Dr. Gold, are there any sample projects that have been done in the past?
If you go out to if you go out to it's 801designu.org, there are some there.
What's Spidey doing with Mommy's phone? I'm not taking a picture.
I need to have someone to please mute their mic. Sounded like the Atlantic Ocean coming in.
So you said 801designu.com?
Yeah, there's some things there. Also, what I'll do is I'll post up one that a group did in a Prezi, I think last year. So let me see if I have those, and then I'll maybe get a couple of those out. What I'm suggesting is, to do it either through Prezi, VoiceThread's fine, a YouTube presentation, however you want to do it. Okay, but I will take a look and see what I have out there, and that website does have some from some of the past groups that have done this. So basically, as I say, the final product, parts of the whole. So again, what you're doing is, and you've actually started this with that handout that I gave you guys that has each of the teams, because you started telling your story. But what I also want you to remember to focus on within that story is, what is the physical space? Where is it? How is it going to be? How are the buildings? If you're using building structures, what would they be like? If you're using virtual environments, or if you're using some type of mobile space, that's fine. But I want that story to define what that physical space is. And then when I talk about flow of information, and so if I remember the storytelling groups with their prototypes, that how, and I'm not sure if it was the one group or the one that was telling stories with social justice, on how the information, i.e. the content, the knowledge, how is that flowing? How does that go together? Now, I'm going to give you an example of this because it happened today in our faculty meeting. And it was kind of interesting. Within the School of Education, they fund some internal research projects, and one was being done with 2 of the staff related to this kind of sense of time. With young kids, their ability to understand relationship of time, from past, present, and future. And what was interesting about it was, as I was sitting there thinking about it, I asked the question about the fact that these kids do not have the ability to demonstrate telling time and what that sense of time means to them. somebody, I got to ask someone to mute something because something's coming across. Now it sounds like dishes sliding across the table. So I don't know what that is or if it's me or what. But anyway, they were talking about this concept of understanding, elapsed time. What does that mean? And, I raised the question. I said, well, these kids don't understand this because you're teaching it from a mathematical point of view. What would happen if you started to teach it from, say, a historical point of view? So if I looked at myself and then I started thinking of my grandfather or my grandmother, when did they live? How much time elapsed between them and now, and if they're still alive? Or getting kids to understand past, present, and future as opposed to just looking at it from the silo of the mathematics. How would you get a concept such as elapsed time to be much more related to an individual from looking at, not from learning how to tell time, but understanding in a relationship to other things in terms of my life. So what I'm talking about is flow of information is basically how do you design your curriculum in a vernacular? What's going to be there? How is that? So again, when you present your final project, make sure you have some discussion about what that is. How is that different? How is it going to really reach what your goals were or are in terms of this project and how to reach that challenge. And then the last one is, talk about system of work. So what does, are you going to use the term teacher? Are you going to use something different? We're going to have learning facilitators. How do kids function in this environment? So what's their system of work? How do adults, if you're looking at lifelong learning? So what's the system of work? So I'd like you to make sure that you pay attention to those three areas so that it adds some meat to the concepts that you're working with around the story. Now I'm going to stop and just ask, does that make sense to you? Do you need any clarification?
Makes sense to me.
Okay, let me see. Funny, we use revolutionary word to teach us. That's good. I like that. So, all right. So make sure that you have those within the process. Then the other side of this, and this is the important one because obviously part of this course is the third in the sequence from your initial 800. Foray into leadership, then into 625, getting into deep source of leadership. And then within this one now, I want you to really, within the team and within that story, define what the leadership skills are going to be necessary for people within this. So my assumption is, as I look at all of your projects and we're listening to you on Saturday, the sense of distributive leadership seems to be pretty strong in terms of these projects, but I want you to be able to find that and then also say that if you were going to hire someone to come into this as part of this project, what are the sources of the type of person you're looking for? What do we need? What's that source of leadership? Because remember, Otto always talked about the need to understand what the source is of our leadership so we can avoid the blind spot. So make sure you at least talk about the necessary leadership skills to make your story work. So that's pretty straightforward, correct? And then the third one then is what I want you to do is to now, think about implementation. So as I said to you in my Sunday weather report, I said to you, I'd like you, to look at the Puccio material in terms of the planning process. So here, if you look at this model that you're creating, what would be some of the implementation strategies, for how you get it started to reach the end point? So make sure you talk about how you're going to engage people within this process. What would be some of the first steps that you're going to need to know, and then also what are the feedback mechanisms to know that you're getting there. So make sure you at least address these as you do your presentation. So we have basically, again, let me just go back. So we're talking about in one, tell the story, obviously. So you'll be able to see it. You've already started doing that with your prototyping, making sure that a person would get a sense of what the physicality of this thing might be, what type of information, what type of learning is taking place, and what are some of the roles that are involved. Then what's the leadership? What is it? So if it's a distributive model, okay, fine. What does that mean? So if you have janitors, how do they fit into the leadership process? Or if you have a CEO, how do they work? What do they need to know? What has to be their source? And then finally, the last one is to take a look at, some implementation strategies. How would you begin this thing? How would you engage, the people involved in it? And then what are some of the assessment tools or feedback loops that we know that, what's going on? So pretty straightforward, material, but it's stuff that, I think would be important because, as I said to you, I'm going to post these, besides my own website there, I'm going to post these up onto the Presencing Institute site under our Drexel Project 801 project. So I like to have these out there in enough that if people are, globally are interested in talking to you about this, you've given them some meat to begin to look at this. All right, so pretty straightforward for what your teams need to do, and quite frankly, as I said to you, based upon what you did at the executive weekend and interacting with your colleagues online, I think you guys are well on your way. And I'm not saying this just to butter you guys up. This is definitely one of the best sets of at least prototypes that I've seen over the last 4.5 years I've been doing this. So as I said to you, either I'm getting better explaining it or you guys are really diving into it. And obviously you're an exceptional group, so you're producing great stuff. So anyway, these are the things that I'd like you to consider as you put this together. So let me see, did I have something else? So presentation format. Basically, again, that's up to you. And I'll see if I can get some things to you so you can see maybe some prezzies or a one that was done with VoiceThread or using YouTube. Do a YouTube presentation, a video. I'd like it in those particular formats if you can do it that way with interactivity, meaning voice of the team talking about these processes, because if I'm going to upload these things to different sites, they generally are the best ways of doing it. So that's what I want to throw out there to you. Any questions about presentation format or anything I've said or things that you feel you need to ask me now?
Dr. Gold?
Yes.
Yeah, it's me, Fatima. So apart from we presenting it in any other form that we want, do we have to physically present something in class like we did with the prototyping? last Saturday.
No, you're not going to, because what's going to happen in class is we're going to use basically what I want is your formats, and then I'm going to share your projects with everyone, you know, so that everyone can watch those. And so the sooner we get those in week 10, I'll get those out. But I'm not doing a show and tell per se in that class. What we're going to do, though, is a lot of analysis of the process.
Okay, thank you.
Okay?
Yeah, thank you.
But I do want to share all 5 presentations with everyone, so everyone can get to see them. And I'll figure out how to do that once I get your projects in the format. So actually, if you post them in a Prezi format, let's say you use Prezi, or if you use some other format, if we make them public, all we have to do then is make sure I have the link, and then I'll get the link out to everyone.
Okay.
Okay? Does that make sense to everybody? Let me put my glasses on so I can read what you're saying. Okay. What I'm just saying is, you know, Julie asked about the idea of, you know, a little bit more about the leadership. What you're talking about, or what I'd like you to at least address, is what type of leader is necessary, or leadership qualities will be necessary to make this thing work. I think that's the best way of saying it. You know, like, for example, if you remember Linsky and Heifetz, you know, talking about the idea that, so one way would be is that a leader, you know, that's going to be generating, you know, whatever the process is there, is that they have to be on the dance floor quite a bit, meaning that they have to be visible, they have to be interacting with all the stakeholders, but at other times they have to get up on the balcony and be able to, you know, to look at the broad picture so they can, you know, generate the ability to allow outside people to understand what this is. So that would be some form of leadership. You know, it seems like dance floor, balcony seems to, you know, strike a lot of resonance with people. But also, if you think about, you know, the ability to create generative conversations, the ability to create trust, so that this thing that we are developing doesn't become static or ossifies, that there's continual growth built into it. So that, to me, would be some of the leadership qualities that are going to be necessary throughout the system in order to make this thing sustainable. Does that help? Okay, I don't see any texting or anything, and yeah, okay, good. So that's what I'm talking about. And again, as you're, you know, as you are working with your teams, and, you know, certain questions pop up, you know, feel free anytime, you know, to just, you know, either give me a call or, you know, email me, and I'll try to clarify the best I can. But remember, I'm divergent, so I'm going to keep it as open as possible to see what you come up with. But obviously, I got to give you the structure for at least what the framework is. Pardon me? Was someone saying something? I heard someone talking, and then it faded into the ether. So that's it, you know. So that's it. You know, that format. And then week 10, as soon as your team feels that they're ready, just get them to me. And as I get them, I will, you know, I'm going to go through them. But what we will do on Saturday, that Saturday, we're going to spend time talking about what they, you know, what those projects are. So, you know, it's not a show and tell the project, but talk about it. But more importantly, talk about what this thing called creativity is about, what you really learn from this process, and share that with each other, but also share it with me in relationship to how can we make this process even better? Because I am going to be doing this summer with a group that is in the doctoral program for special education that we're running down in DC. So I have 10 people, going to have 2 teams functioning, and obviously I'm going to use some of your stuff, to show them as examples. So again, think about, the way in which you're creating this, but I think the more feedback you give me, it even helps me for future groups to, help them to even develop this more and more. The other thing I want to let you know, if you were on the MOOC and you received some messages from the Presencing Institute about they are going to do a prototyping camp at the end of October. I believe it's the end of October. And they were asking, you had to apply for it. So I did apply for going up to this prototyping camp. And there's going to be 60, they're going to bring in 60 people, will come to it at MIT from around the world, sharing prototypes, sharing ideas. But in my proposal, I added in the possibility, because they have some, quote, scholarship money, of possibly bringing some of you up there, and bring our prototypes that came out of this quarter and share those. And I don't know if it's going to be possible to get some of you to come up there, but that is a possibility. So I want you to know that that is in my thinking, and I think that's going to be important. The other thing I'm trying to get, and I'm going to talk to the dean about this, is possibly running our own summer week-long redesigning schools for the future symposium workshop at Drexel and bring everybody into it. Business people, kids into it, people from West Philadelphia, and any of the things that the university is trying to do in those areas, but really, create a very large, week-long dive into reinventing our schools within our area using some of the models, that we're generating here. So I just want you to know that a lot of the work you're doing here hopefully will kickstart some things that we'd like to, move this out into a broader audience. But more importantly, even as you're in this program and even working on your dissertation, that you yourselves will be able to be part of this, so you can get into, demonstrating particularly what you learned out of the core courses within a community. So I just want to throw that out to you also, that we're kind of playing around with that idea. So I'm not going to keep you on here any longer if there's not any other questions. I just wanted to make sure that you understood the structure going forward, that if you do have any questions from your team that you need further clarification, anytime, get a hold of me. And I just wanted to give you a sense of some possibilities of what we're going to do with your work going forward. So that's it from me. You are free to leave the room. I'm going to turn the recording off, but I'll be the last person on as usual. So if you do have any questions or you need to talk about any other things, I will be here. So otherwise, if there are no other questions, I will wish you all a good night.